His initial idea was that I was involved somehow. He didn't know how, but he thought that I was involved somehow. I knew something. I was covering up for someone.
Falsely accused. It's a thing no one wants to be, but in a highly publicized case in a country that's not your own, where it's easy for the media to work against you, things can easily get out of hand. Today on Where Are They Now, I, Adam Andrews, will be telling you all about the case of Amanda Knox, whose wrongful conviction and subsequent media frenzy all but overshadowed the actual crime she was convicted and then acquitted of, the murder of Meredith Kercher. American citizen Amanda Knox, born July 9, 1987, moved to Perugia, the capital city of Umbria in central Italy, in 2007 at the age of 20 for an academic year, attending the University for Foreigners on exchange from the University of Washington in her home state of Seattle. Knox lived in a 4-bedroom ground floor apartment at Via della Pergola 7 with 3 other women. This is where she first met Meredith Kercher, born December 28, 1985, who was a 21-year-old British exchange student from the University of Leeds. Knox and Kercher lived with 2 Italian trainee lawyers in their late 20s, Filomena Romanelli and Laura Mazzetti. The lower level of the house was rented by 4 young Italian men with whom both Kercher and Knox were friendly and who were friends with one Rudy Guade, who both Kercher and Knox met late one night in mid-October after he had been invited into the lower level flat by some of the Italian tenants. In her time not spent studying, Amanda Knox worked part-time at a bar called Le Chic, which was owned by a Congolese man, Dia Patrick Lumumba. She preferred spending her time in Italy with the locals, but her and Kercher were friends, with the two attending the Euro Chocolate Festival in mid-October and, on the 25th of October 2007, attended a classical music concert where Knox met Rafael Solicito, a 23-year-old computer science student at the University of Perugia, who Knox would go on to date, with Knox beginning to spend most of her time at his flat. Now, All Saints' Day in Italy takes place on November 1st, and is a public holiday. As such, the Italian residents of Via della Pergola 7, the 2 flatmates as well as the residents of the lower level, were no longer home. Meredith Kercher was last seen around 9 p.m. after having dinner with friends not too far from her apartment. Knox, in contrast, had spent the night at Rafael Solicito's flat. The next morning, November 2nd, is when things began to take a turn for the worse, though. Knox returned to the apartment to find the door open with drops of blood and Kercher's bedroom door locked. She called Kercher's phone, which she could normally be reached on, and when she didn't pick up, Knox called one of the Italian flatmates to say she thought something was wrong. Knox then returned with Solicito later in the day and tried to break down the still locked door to Meredith Kercher's room. They were unsuccessful, and after calling the police, who refused to break down the door as well, Filomena Romanelli's male friend did, which is when the body of 21-year-old Meredith Kercher was found covered by a duvet. Now, the key damning moment for Knox was the very disputed all-night interrogation that took place with Italian police, where Knox signed a confession written out in Italian that wrongfully placed her at the house the night of the murder and also accused Patrick Lumumba, her boss, of the crime. Police arrested Knox, Solicito, and Patrick Lumumba on November 6, 2007, eventually charging Knox and Solicito to life in prison for the crime, with charges against Lumumba being dropped a short time later thanks to numerous alibis from the customers he served that night at his bar. It would later be determined that there was no biological trace of Amanda Knox or Rafael Solicito in Kercher's bedroom. So why would Amanda Knox have said these things that were clearly not true? At her trial, Knox testified about her interrogation, saying that she had spent hours maintaining her original story that she had been with Solicito at his flat all night and had no knowledge of the murder. But the police did not believe her and had coerced and manipulated the 20-year-old. Knox even testified to being told, quote, that she probably did not remember well because she was traumatized and that she should try to remember something else, unquote, during her interrogation. Knox went on saying, quote, they said they were convinced that I was protecting someone. They were saying, who is it? Who is it? They were saying, here's the message on your telephone. You wanted to meet up with him. You are a stupid liar. In addition to the strong verbal interrogation tactics, Knox also said that a policewoman was saying, come on, remember, and then slapping Knox in the back of the head. Furthermore, she had reportedly requested a lawyer, but was told it would make things worse for her and that she would go to jail for 30 years. She also said she was was not allowed access to food, water, or the bathroom, although most of this was disputed by the officers who conducted the interrogation. The confession itself was much later ruled inadmissible in court, with Amanda Knox and her boyfriend, Rafael Solicito, ultimately being acquitted of the crime after Europe's top human rights court ruled that she had been deprived of adequate legal aid during an interrogation, and that the DNA evidence used to convict her was flawed. The court ordered Italy to pay her $21,000 in damages, but this was after she had already served 4 years for the wrongful conviction. Now it turns out that Rudy Guade, the acquaintance of Knox and Kercher, who was a known burglar, was convicted of the crime after his bloodstained fingerprints were found at the scene and his DNA was found on and inside Kercher's body. Guade was tried separately from Knox and Solicito and convicted before their trial even began. He even testified that he sat with Meredith Kercher as she died, didn't call the police, and quote, talked about the amount of blood for 10 minutes. He had even fled to Germany before being extradited back to Italy. Rudy Guade was eventually sentenced to only 16 years for his crimes. To be treated so harshly by police in an interrogation, wrongfully accused of murder, and then made to spend 4 years in prison for the crime, that's all bad enough. But it was the media's constant barrage of attacks on Amanda Knox that made everything so much worse. In Italy, juries are not sequestered, meaning they aren't kept segregated from the public and can easily be influenced by media. It's also incredibly common for police and lawyers to leak information to the press, which resulted in a lot of media coverage. Almost before the actual victim's name had been fully revealed, reporters had gone snooping, finding images of the victim on the Halloween before her passing, but they had also gone digging through the social media of Amanda Knox and her then boyfriend as well. They found pictures of her posing with an antique weapon, which they used alongside the name Foxy Knoxy, which was apparently a perfect evil-inspiring name for the tabloids to run with, but was in actual fact a 3rd grade soccer nickname for Amanda. They ran with the stories that included the prosecution's theories of satanic games, Miss Knox doing cartwheels in the police station, which was just yoga, shopping for lingerie with her boyfriend because she had no underwear, and wearing a shirt that said, quote, "All you need is love," which is from the Beatles song. They made light of the murder itself, calling it a perfect crime in a medieval town. They called Amanda Knox crazed because she kept a toy in her bathroom and a list of partners she wrote in a journal because the police told her she had contracted HIV when she actually hadn't. They said that she was diabolical, that she didn't flush the toilet, and that she had blue eyes of ice. And these weren't just tabloids in Italy. In England, the home of Meredith Kercher, tabloids had free reign over the speculation of guilt or innocence since the crime had taken place in a different country, freeing them of the laws that would normally stop such things, which allowed them to report without limits. When she was finally released from prison, Amanda Knox had to be taken to a safe house before her flight home, whose touchdown was covered by the news. Meredith Kercher's name had largely moved to the background, the same with her actual killer and the innocence of Amanda Knox. So, where is Amanda Knox now? About a year after she returned home, Amanda Knox's acquittal was overturned and she was retried and reconvicted in absentia. By the time she was fully acquitted in 2015, Miss Knox had been convicted, imprisoned, acquitted, and released on an appeal, in which time she had finished up her undergraduate degree in creative writing at the University of Washington, was retried and convicted again, and finally was exonerated by Italy's Supreme Court. She and her mother were also tried and acquitted of slandering the Italian police. She also faced charges that she had defamed Mr. Lumumba, and she was sentenced to 3 years for that crime, which she had obviously already served. Her public perception and identity was skewed and constantly being watched. She would travel at night to avoid cameras, and she would try and lay low for the most part, but she was fiercely against the question of her innocence. She was constantly and furiously trying to clear her name. She would go on to write a book about her experience titled Waiting to be Heard, a memoir, and Knox would also later work as an advocate for others who were incarcerated for crimes they did not commit. In a New York Times interview with Jessica Bennett, published in October of 2021, Amanda, 34 at the time, and her husband, Christopher Robinson, had just had their first baby together, and had been documenting the pregnancy on a podcast called Labyrinths. They were living on Vashon Island in Washington State, far enough away from Seattle and the mainland to avoid too many prying eyes. Her past being watched over by media outlets, with any move she made being turned into into a story that was undoubtedly skewed in any number of ways has clearly had an effect on her. All in all, I believe Amanda is just trying her best to control the narrative surrounding her and move on with her life for the good of her daughter and her own health and sanity. And with that, dear viewers, the video has come to an end. Had you heard of Amanda Knox before today? Let me know down in the comments, and feel free to comment any suggestions for future true crime Where Are They Nows. For now though, don't forget to subscribe here at Where Are They Now. I've been your host, Adam Andrews, and until next time, stay in the know out there.